You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, we're looking at some players who could be available on your waiver wire as you're either fully in the thick of the playoff race, you're pushing towards the playoffs, you are in the back end stages of a roto league. Lots of players to look at, to add, to help you push towards a championship. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Indeed, let's start by looking at, and these are just guys who I look at their roster percentage and think maybe that's a little bit low, and Marquise Chris is one of those, 55% rostered on Yahoo, still not 100% rostered with our advanced percentage metric. Chris has been playing relatively well over the last 2 weeks. He's the 94th ranked player, and to me that garners rosterability in pretty much every single league, yet still a lot of leagues don't have him on a roster. Yes, there are guys like Dragan Bender pushing, and we're going to talk about Bender a little bit later, pushing into some of his role. There is still, Kevon Looney and Alan Smilajic. I just don't think they're going to give those guys those minutes, Smilajic and Looney. And I think we'll see Chris get the bulk of those 25, 26 minutes a night as a starter, and that's probably all he needs. His ability to get steals, he blocks shots, he's rebounding, he's scoring, he's being efficient, he's not committing the dumbest fouls that you'll ever see, which he was doing as a member of the Phoenix Suns, and he shouldn't be on any waiver wires. Shabazz Napier, the next guy I want to talk about, the new starting point guard of the Wizards. Now, it's been a little bit of a rocky road, but a guy that could start and play 26 or 27 minutes a night. He is, over the last 2 weeks, the 96th ranked player in only 24 minutes. He gets steals at an okay rate, okay threes, assists pretty strongly. Scoring will be okay. There will be some ups and downs, but he's available in a ton of leagues. Over 83% available in Yahoo. Even in the advanced metric, he is available in a lot of scenarios. He's probably not going to be for everybody, but I think he's at least worth looking at and at least worth streaming in when the Wizards play. But otherwise, I do think he's worth more than that. I think he's worth a grab to see how this plays out as him as a starting point guard, but it may not work out. This next bloke, Kevin Porter, I don't think we can leave him on any waiver wires. Porter is going to get 30 minutes a night from here on out. He's the 111th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. I think he can push close to the top 100. He's going to get 30 minutes a night. He's going to score a lot. Some nights he gets assists. Some nights he gets steals. The free throw percentage can be wonky at times, but his overall efficiency is good. He hits some threes. I just don't see any reason to leave Porter on waiver wires. I would have him over Darius Garland from the Cavs in terms of players to add. So Porter is the guy that should not be sitting on any waiver wires. Just a quick mention of Norman Powell, who is available. He did return over the weekend from his finger issue. It was a really strong performance from him in that game over the weekend, but that level of usage isn't to be expected given that Fred VanVleet was out, but he can still be a relatively or highly efficient scorer who hits threes and gets points. He doesn't do very much else apart from that. Steal rate's going to be important for him in terms of overall ranking, but he is a player who, again, over the course of this season, Powell is the 71st ranked player in 28 minutes a night. Maybe he doesn't even get 28 a night, but I still think that there's enough there from Powell, who is available in 56% of Yahoo leagues, to be a guy that we add now that he is back from injury and see what happens. Kobe White has obviously been playing fantastic. Last couple of games have dropped off somewhat, but still over the last 2 weeks, he's the 18th ranked player because in large part due to high volume and insanely high efficiency, which is going to drop off. I'm not sure that the volume's going to drop off. There is still the return of Larry Markin and Otto Porter, which allegedly are going to occur this season, but White's still going to get his opportunities. The problem is the low assists and low steals and lowish rebounds do bring him back a little bit, but I still think that he is a 12-team worthy guy who's available in 42% of leagues, and a guy, again, that I'd be taking that flyer on. His teammate's an interesting one, Otto Porter. We don't know when he's coming back. It looks like it's going to be soon. We don't know how much he's going to play. Remember, he was on a bullshit minutes limit to begin the season without even having any injuries, so you'd have to expect he's not even going to sniff 30 minutes here down the stretch, but he still could be in 25 or 26. He still could be a back-end guy. Now, he's probably more of a 14-team must-add, just given the uncertainty of how much he's going to play. But in 12s, if you're just really looking for that small forward, the efficient small forward who gets steals and hits threes, Porter can be that guy for you, and he is coming back now. He's missed in nearly all of this season with a broken bone in his foot. They are going to be really cautious with Porter, but if he gets 25 a night, then he can still be a 12-team league contributor. Speaking of threes and steals, Trevor Ariza, he doesn't do a huge amount else, and the offensive production is wildly inconsistent. But this guy can get you 1.5 to 2 steals per game. He's the 67th ranked player in the last 2 weeks in huge amount of minutes. It's got nothing to do with usage, although that has spiked a little bit with Lillard out. It's about him hitting threes, but most importantly, about him getting steals. If you don't get steals, if you don't need steals, he provides no value to you. That is where he is. And there's so many of those players that you can find at the back end of, or on the waiver wire, like a D'Anthony Melton type. Chris Dunn was that guy for a long time before his knee injury, and Ariza is the latest in that run of guys who come in and provide 1.5 to 2 steals a game, which really inflates their ranking, but it still can be really useful, and that's exactly what Ariza is doing at the moment. Damian Lee is there as well, a guy available in quite a few leagues now. When Steph Curry eventually returns, we don't know what's going to happen with the minutes and the usage of all these players, but Lee's available in 70% of leagues. He's a top 50 player over the last 2 weeks, mainly because we've had Wiggins out and Draymond out, and of course no Steph, and he has seen an increase in his production, but he's going to score okay. He's just going to produce solid enough numbers across the board. Nothing spectacular, no really one big standout category like a Trevor Ariza, just solid average to above or below average contributions in most categories, and that's okay for a back-end type of guy. Again, that could really change when Steph returns, but for now, Lee has some value. Now we're going to talk about his brother-in-law, Curry, not Steph, but the other one, Seth Curry, who apparently is the greatest shooter in the history of the world. He's just banging in threes. I think he was at 50+% over February. He's getting points, he's getting threes, he's doing absolutely nothing else, like no steals, no assists, no rebounds, but insanely high field goal percentage, great free throw percentage, but that volume of threes is massive, and if your league counts 3-point percentage, and he is going to be an absolute must roster player. Curry still should be. Now, of course, Steph's a different story. We know that his return has been pushed back a few days. He's still, obviously, if someone dropped him, he's still an ad. But Seth is also a guy that I'd be looking to add in your 12-team league formats. Let's go on now, look at the next bunch of guys I want to look at, and one of them, he makes us proud. I don't know how many of you guys that have been listening to this podcast from back in the halcyon days of James Johnson, where he was like this consistent top 40 player for the Heat and was a real championship-changing fantasy option. Well, he's almost getting back to that level. Over the last 2 weeks, he's the 44th ranked player in 24 minutes a night. He scores, he hits threes, he rebounds, he gets assists, he gets steals, and he gets blocks. He's almost the perfect fantasy player. It's just that we don't get enough volume or playing time out of him. Now, while Karl Anthony Towns is out, he's performing at a higher level than someone like Naz Reid. Now, I don't think his upside's as high because he's not going to push to 30 or 32 minutes, and he's going to lose out quite a bit when Towns returns. But for now, Jim Johnson, he is making us very, very proud, and he does have absolutely 12-team league value. As I'm recording this, Shake Milton is going bananas once again. He is putting up some big numbers. The 61st ranked player over the last 2 weeks with no Simmons, no Embiid. It's Shake's show apparently in Philadelphia. He's scoring, he's hitting threes, he gets some assists, but it's that volume, the usage, the scoring that's really doing it for Shake. And again, it's short term, but Simmons might not be back until April. Embiid might be a week, we don't know, but Milton should be rostered. He's clearly been that winner in that Neto, Burks, Furky from Turkey combination of who was going to get those minutes. It's clearly Shake, who looks really, really good, and he should be rostered in all leagues. Let's go to a pair of Atlanta Hawks players, Cam Reddish and Deandre Hunter. Reddish is the guy that I would have over Hunter. He's a little bit more inconsistent, but he consistently can bring threes and steals. Sometimes there's fluctuations in his minutes and his scoring, but Reddish is the 70th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, which is something that we absolutely have to look at, while his teammate Deandre Hunter is 81st. Now, Hunter over the course of the season is still 186th, despite playing 32 minutes a night, but recently he's been able to up that usage a little bit. We still have concerns with the lack of rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, and sometimes the wonky percentages, but in 14-team leagues, Hunter's a must-add player, and he is pushing into that 12-team league discussion at the moment. Deandre, again, probably prefer Reddish over him, but Hunter's putting up some pretty good numbers at the moment. This one's more of a deeper league special, but Nicole O'Malley of the Pelicans is the 75th ranked player over the last 2 weeks because he's banging in threes at a really high rate. He's scoring well. He's playing 20 plus minutes a night. If you're looking for a 3-point streamer and you've only got a big man position available, there is no better option than Malley, who's going to be on your waiver wire. He's taking those 20 minutes a night pretty comfortably. That's causing guys like Josh Hart and JJ Redick to lose playing time, along with Derek Favors. He's hitting those threes at an insane rate. We talk about 3-point percentage leagues like Seth Curry, while Malley's banging them in at 50% as well. So he's a great contributor there. He's not afraid to take them. Obviously, that's his job, and it's working out pretty well for him. So Malley is a guy that we can look at, as well as Kent Bazemore, who, again, is someone who's getting way more minutes than I expected at this point for Sacramento, taking minutes away from Buddy Hield and Bogdan Bogdanovic, 83rd ranked player over the last 2 weeks, mainly on the back of his steals, but he hits some threes. Sometimes he can get some assists. The percentages can be wonky from Bazemore, but getting those defensive numbers with assists and threes is a pretty good combination, and he's at least in that short-term 12-team league conversation, as is Garrett Temple of the Brooklyn Nets. Now, his role's been relatively steady. He's a top 100 player over his last 6 games because he's doing what I said before, just contributing small amounts in every category. The percentages sometimes can be a bit weird for his shooting, and he's not all that consistent, but he's a must-roster 14-team league guy who is available in 92% of leagues, and there is some 12-team ability with Garrett Temple. Same with Juancho Hernangomez, who's a guy that I've always liked coming into the league. Had moments where he dropped off considerably, especially this year where he just couldn't hit any shots, but in a larger role, he has turned it around in Minnesota. Now, I think he's still more of a 14-team must-add guy, but 107th over the last 2 weeks puts him in the discussion to be a 12-team league streamer to get that value. And I think he's someone that we look to add at this point while he's on a bit of a hot streak, while Towns is out, because it probably won't last long term. It does look like Cody Zeller is going to be sitting for the foreseeable future. So Bismack Biyombo is a guy that if you're looking for big man numbers, looking for some rebounds, some blocks, and some field goal percentage with absolutely nothing else, Biyombo is probably going to be able to deliver that for you. He is a guy that has stepped up. He's played big minutes in the last 2 starts in place of Zeller. And if that continues, which I believe it will for the next week, Biyombo can be a sneaky 12-team league streamer. Let's move on to the last list of guys that I want to talk about here. One of them is Jeremy Grant. Paul Millsap's minutes are coming down. He's also now battling a knee problem, so Grant is more of a 14-team league ad, but if Millsap is out, then Grant goes back into that 12-team area. Brandon Knight, another guy who's putting up some numbers weirdly in Detroit, and with Bruce Brown and Luke Kennard, the Duck Shark combo, still sidelined. Knight's getting 24 or 25 a night, and there's absolutely really strong stream value in what Brandon's doing. It's not going to be for everybody, but he's at least putting up numbers. Same with the triangle, Eric Paschal, not a must roster player, but with Green seemingly sitting out every single game, Pascal's getting some extra playing time. He'll occasionally have the big scoring night. I don't love him as a must-add guy. In fact, he's not a must-add 12-team league player, but he's a nice 14-team league guy with some stream ability. As is Dragan Bender, who put up a really big one against the Phoenix Suns. Now, the problem is the game before that was pretty terrible from Bender, but he's available almost everywhere, 99% available in Yahoo leagues, and I think he's a 16-team league ad. He's getting minutes, and I said this when he was signed. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the mix for the Warriors starting center job next season. I think they'll retain him next season and sign him to one of those 3-year contracts with last 2 years non-guaranteed. And Bender's putting up some okay numbers. Now, he's never been the best fantasy producer, but he has improved in that area this season, and we saw that last game against Phoenix. Another big man to look at is Harry Giles. Again, while Richaun Holmes is out, Giles is starting. He's putting up numbers, and that is making him a short-term, at least 12-team league guy. Really strong numbers coming there. While if you're looking for some defensive numbers, Flaming Mo Harkless. He's not getting bought out by the Knicks. He is, interestingly, a buyout today happening. Jordan McRae getting bought out from the Nuggets on a playoff team so he can go to a non-playoff team, the Suns. I think he might have a role in the Suns, but he's not going to be a 12-team league ad. As for Harkless, you're looking for some steals and blocks with the occasional 3 thrown in there and absolutely nothing else. Harkless can help you, especially on a streaming basis. This is a guy that I think he had 3 steals and 1 block in his last game. He's starting for the Knicks, playing 26 minutes a night. That's enough for him to be at least in that 14-team league discussion. Guys, that'll do it for me today. I'll be back later on to recap all of Sunday's action and preview Monday's games. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Give me a comment, leave a thumbs up down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.